So our next speaker is Adam Ficsor. Adam Ficsor is a Bitcoin privacy developer, CTO of zkSNACKs, and also co-founder and CTO of Wasabi Wallet. There we go, the current state and future of Bitcoin privacy.
Can you hear me, guys? Yes. Awesome. So, I got you something very, very important, and I hope you can pay attention because I'm going to talk about technologies, and I was able to break them down in a very coherent and consistent way. And you are hearing about these technologies all the time: Schnorr, segregated witness, confidential transactions. But you might have a you might don't really understand that what's going on or how these all things fit together. So that's what I'm going to talk about in the context of privacy. How far can we get with Bitcoin in privacy? So what's our end vision? Because what do we have now? Coin joins, mixing transactions. It's super unpractical, and as the fees go up, they're gonna get priced out of the market. So it's just not good. We have to have better things than that. So there are two things: network level privacy and blockchain level privacy. For one, network level privacy can be put to two categories. One is how you are broadcasting your transaction. And how many of you are using full nodes here? How many of you are using Tor to broadcast your transaction? Okay, not much. So what's happening with the rest of the people who are neither using full nodes nor Tor to broadcast their transaction? So there is a server for your wallet provider, and then you give the transaction to them. They know exactly your IP address, and that's not a very private way to broadcast your transaction. If I would ask you how much money do you have, you would feel very uncomfortable by these questions, but they know exactly how much money you have because there are no guarantees. They are not trying to protect you against themselves. So this is the problem with broadcasting transactions. And one good enough solution what we have right now is Tor. Tor is an anonymity network, so you are hiding your IP address with Tor, which is a good way to broadcast your transactions. If you're using Bitcoin Core, well, you still want to use Tor to broadcast your transactions, but it gets a bit complicated because then you are also listening to transactions and you are forwarding other people's transactions, so it's harder to figure out that what transaction is yours, so that's not that bad. But the best way we could do this is actually with Dandelion. Dandelion is a broadcasting protocol which acts in a way that first you are broadcasting to one person, and then that to one person, and that to one person, and there is a probability that it goes into a second phase when they are broadcasting to two, and then there is a probability to broadcast it to everyone in the network. And that's a great way, because if you get a transaction from somewhere in the first phase of Dandelion, you don't know if is that the first guy who was broadcasting a transaction or the sixth or so you broadcast your transactions privately. This is one of the network level thing. The other big question of the network level is, so few people know about this, but you know, you have a Bitcoin wallet and you have Bitcoin addresses. And if you're not using a full node, then how do you know that you have this much money in your wallet? How do you know which UTXOs do you want to spend in the transaction when you want to send other people money? Well, you just ask your wallet service provider. You send a query that, hey, I have this address, this and this and this addresses, or even worse, your ex-pub key, and then they know exactly your wallet content, how much money you have, whatever you ever done in your life with Bitcoin on that wallet. And it is, of course, tied to your IP address if you're not using Tor. So it's a huge, huge problem with light wallets today. Why is not a problem with a full node like Bitcoin Core? It's because Bitcoin Core downloads every transaction from the blockchain. So how do they know that how much money you have? You just check it on your hard drive and you will know. What do we do with Wasabi? I'm a Wasabi developer. And in Wasabi, we are using neutrino filters, which has many, many names. BIP 157, BIP 150, no, BIP 158, BIP 159, client-side filtering. These things might be familiar to you. The basic idea is that there is a server, and the server builds a filter table. That filter table is being synchronized by all the clients. That's a constant thing. And based on that filter table, you can figure out which blocks you are interested in. And then you're fetching the blocks from Bitcoin full nodes, one full node at a time, over Tor, over new Tor circuit. And then from the blocks, you can figure out which transactions you are interested in. So it's not perfect like what a Bitcoin full node does, but it's really hard to attack this. So network-level privacy is broadcasting and establishing your UTXO set. This is kind of like already solved, so you don't need to make any changes to Bitcoin protocol. But the blockchain-level privacy, that's much more important and important in the sense that it's not already solved, and we have to have some fights on the protocol level later on to make this happen. So just a quick intro into how Bitcoin works. You might don't know. Bitcoin transaction. You get 1 Bitcoin from someone. Okay, here is your Bitcoin. You want to send it. Then you put that Bitcoin into a transaction. This is how we show a transaction. This is how we draw a transaction. So you have a 1 Bitcoin input into the transaction, and then you want to send 0.6 Bitcoin to me. Awesome. So 1 Bitcoin in, 0.6 to me. Wait, what happens with the 0.4 Bitcoin? That's the miner fee. But you have to have another output in the transaction. And that's the change that goes back to you. So this is how Bitcoin works. This is the UTXO set model. Ethereum works in a different way because they are using balance model, which is privacy is very, very hard to build on a model where you have a balance and not UTXOs like this. So, okay, what can we do with these UTXOs? Oh, but before that, a Bitcoin transaction, you have to sign it, so it has to have a signature. And this comes back, now I'm going to explain segregated witness, is that you are segregating the witness, you're segregating the signature, so you are putting the signature outside of the transaction. That's how simple it is. But in terms of fees, which is going to be relevant for us a bit later, we still pay some fees after the signatures. The signatures are huge compared to the transaction. So one interesting thing is that this is why it's a block size increase, because the signature doesn't disappear, but you are paying less fees for it. But you're still paying fees for the signatures, just not the whole thing. This is some economic planning there, right in the protocol level. This is a Bitcoin transaction. Now, let's talk about coin joins. So we have the exact same Bitcoin transaction up there, and then we have a new Bitcoin transaction for 2.1 Bitcoin in and 0.7 to someone and 1.4 to someone else. Now, what is a coin join? You just combine these two transactions, and that's a coin join. It's not magic. But we have a problem with this kind of coin join. What is the problem with it? Just please, someone shout it because I'm not sure you're following me. What is the problem with this coin join? Is that you can de-anonymize it easily because you can see that where the thing's coming from, even if it's in one transaction, it's not a very private coin join. Okay, so what can we do? We can do a lot of things with it, but one thing that we could do is that I removed the 1.4 Bitcoin and I create 3 more outputs back to the same guy. So now the 0.6 Bitcoin, we don't really know which input it comes from. And the 0.4 Bitcoin outputs, we don't really know which input it comes from. So no, this is a better way to do coin joins. Okay, this is a better way to do coin joins, but it puts more data on the blockchain because there are more UTXOs. Well, that's not optimal. So what can we do? Confidential transactions. Back to the exact same coin join that was unoptimal. What would confidential transactions do? Confidential transactions is not in Bitcoin, and it's a good question if it will be in Bitcoin. What would it do? It would just hide the amount. That's what confidential transaction is all about. This is the simplest thing in a conceptual level, as you can imagine. So now you have no idea what's going on in this transaction. Okay, so there is a big problem with that, a big problem, because confidential transaction proofs outputs are huge. So you would have to pay a very large fees because you are paying the fees after blockchain space used. Okay, so bulletproofs. Have you heard about bulletproofs? Who heard about bulletproofs? Okay, a lot of people. Okay, so what does bulletproofs do compared to confidential transactions? For one, it makes the proof smaller. For two, it aggregates them. And this is very, very powerful because if there are 100 people doing coin join together, then you just have one proof and it's not going to matter. The fee is not going to matter anymore. So private transactions become close as expensive as non-private transactions, which is great. But it even gets better with signature aggregation. In signature aggregation, you see, we have 2 signatures in the inputs. And we can aggregate them and make our transaction even smaller. And now, we have, this is not in Bitcoin protocol yet, but this is coming. So it's not like confidential transactions, like probably coming, maybe coming, I don't know. Okay, but this is coming. So now, if you have 100 inputs and only 1 signature, that's great because now you are basically not paying for the signature because you are sharing 1 signature fee with everyone in the transaction. So now, fully private, coin join transactions with confidential transactions and bulletproofs, and Schnorr signatures are even cheaper than normal Bitcoin transactions. So this is where we want to get with Bitcoin privacy. Thank you.
Thank you for your talk. You've put, there is so much effort into creating the privacy, and it's amazing because it's also very hardcore. I have there's a thing, when we want to have the democratize this whole blockchain, Bitcoin transactions for everyone, peer-to-peer transactions for everyone, we need somehow more easier user interfaces that people just don't fuck up because they didn't take care of so many different aspects of the privacy. Do you, since you are deep into this stuff, do you have any recommendations? Because otherwise people just use Coinbase.
Yes, it is hard. We are not ready, sorry.
Use Wasabi.
You can use Wasabi wallet. I like to think it's intuitive, so you can figure out how to use it in a... If you ever used a Bitcoin wallet before, so that's a good thing you can do, yes.
Great talk, thanks Adam. So of course coin joins are awesome and confidential transactions would be awesome, but I think Lightning Network is also very awesome. So would there be an issue with having Lightning Network with confidential transactions within coin joins?
I can see why would be that an issue. In fact, we could even do Lightning Network channel openings right now with coin joins, which would be awesome, but then people would get greedy and the base functionality would not get built out better, and you would have to, you know, these feature works are should come when Lightning Network is stable enough and when we have time and when enough adoptions the Lightning Network have. But yes, in theory there is no any issues with that architecture, or you can contribute on GitHub. Everything is in Wasabi, everything is open source, so go ahead. Okay. I think that's it. Yes. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you.